Most modern workers do not need a productivity system as much as they need a rescue mission. The calendar is full, the inbox is glowing, the phone is vibrating, and somehow the actual important work is still waiting in the corner like an unpaid bill. That is the world Cal Newport is writing into in Deep Work. The book is not really about doing more. It is about recovering the ability to do the kind of work that actually matters. Welcome. In this first part, we will set up the central argument of deep work. Why focused, demanding, distraction-free work has become rare, why it has become valuable, and why a serious life cannot be built entirely out of quick replies, meetings, notifications, and professional-looking busyness. Newport begins with Carl Jung, which is already a warning that this is not going to be another book telling you to buy a nicer notebook and drink lemon water at 5 in the morning. Jung built a retreat at Bollingen, away from the noise of his regular professional life, so he could think, write, and develop difficult ideas. The point is not that everyone needs to build a stone tower. Most of us can barely keep a drawer organized. The point is that Jung understood something many modern knowledge workers have forgotten. Serious thought needs protected space. Newport calls that kind of effort deep work. In simple terms, deep work is focused professional activity that pushes your mind to its limit and creates value that is hard to copy. It is not just concentration for concentration's sake. It is the mental state required to write the book, solve the hard problem, master the skill, build the system, design the strategy, or make the creative leap that ordinary busyness will never produce. The opposite is shallow work. Shallow work is logistical, low-cognitive, easy-to-replicate activity, responding to routine emails, moving information around, sitting in status meetings, formatting, checking, reacting, and generally producing the beautiful illusion that something important is happening because everyone is very tired. Newport is careful here. He is not saying all shallow work is useless. Some of it is necessary. Teams need coordination. Customers need replies. Bills need paying. The problem is that shallow work expands like steam. If we do not contain it, it fills the entire day. Then we go home exhausted, not because we wrestled with meaningful difficulty, but because we spent 8 hours being nibbled by small demands. The book's central claim is that deep work is becoming more valuable at the same time is becoming more rare. That combination matters. When something is valuable and rare, it becomes a serious advantage. In a noisy economy, the person who can learn hard things quickly and produce at a high level has an edge over the person who merely looks available on chat. Newport ties this to the modern economy. He argues that 3 kinds of people are especially positioned to succeed: those who can work well with intelligent machines, those who are the best at what they do, and those with access to capital. Most of us cannot simply wake up and choose the third category. It will be nice, of course. Today I shall access capital is a charming plan, right up there with today I shall become tall. But the first 2 categories depend heavily on learning and producing, and both require depth. To work well with intelligent tools, you must be able to learn complicated systems. To become excellent in a competitive field, you must be able to improve through focused practice. Both abilities depend on attention. If your attention is constantly shattered, your learning becomes shallow and your output becomes ordinary. This is where the book becomes uncomfortable, because Newport is not blaming only the phone. The phone is an easy villain. It sits there with its little glass face, pretending to be helpful while quietly training you to check it like a lab animal with a data plan. But Newport's deeper point is that modern work culture itself often rewards shallow behavior. Quick responses look responsible. Full calendars look important. Constant availability looks like teamwork. Deep work, by contrast, often looks suspicious from the outside because a person doing it may be unavailable, quiet, or absent from the daily performance of urgency. That is one reason the book still feels current. In June 2025, Axios reported on Microsoft's Work Trend Index research, describing an infinite workday, where knowledge workers are interrupted by digital pings roughly every couple of minutes during business hours, with many meetings happening spontaneously and work stretching outside normal hours. Newport published Deep Work years earlier, but the diagnosis aged well. The modern office did not defeat distraction. It gave distraction enterprise software and a calendar invite. This current story supports the book's warning. When communication tools multiply without discipline, the workday can become a reaction machine. People are busy, reachable, informed, looped in, aligned, synced, and slowly losing the very attention required to do excellent work. Everyone is in a loop. The loop is just around their neck. Newport also uses examples like Nate Silver, high-performing programmers, and elite knowledge workers to show that the market rewards people who can transform concentration into scarce output. These examples are not meant to make us worship famous achievers. They're meant to clarify a pattern. The people who create uncommon value usually spend serious time in uncommon states of focus. This point sounds obvious until you compare it with the way many people actually work. We say we want important results, but we organize our days around interruption. We say strategy matters, then give our best morning hours to inbox archaeology. We say creativity matters, then place a notification slot machine within arm's reach and act shocked when our attention behaves like it has been mugged. The first lesson of deep work is that attention is not a soft preference. It is a production asset. If your work depends on thinking, then attention is part of your capital. You would not casually throw away your tools, burn your savings, or hand your laptop to a stranger at a bus stand. Yet many knowledge workers casually surrender their attention dozens or hundreds of times a day. Newport connects deep work with deliberate practice. Improvement does not happen simply because you spend time in a field. Plenty of people spend years doing a job and become only more experienced at mediocrity. Improvement requires feedback, stretch, and focused effort beyond the comfort zone. That is why deep work matters for skill. It creates the conditions under which the brain can actually change. There's a useful distinction here between being tired and getting better. Shallow work can make you tired. Meetings can make you tired. Email can make you tired. A day spent reacting can leave you lying on the sofa with the haunted expression of someone who has seen 27 action items and no meaning. But tired is not the same as trained. Deep work is tiring in a different way because it asks the mind to struggle productively. Newport's argument is not anti-technology. That would be too simple. He is not telling us to move into the woods, churn butter, and send business updates by pigeon. He is asking us to be honest about the cognitive cost of tools. A tool can be useful and still dangerous when used without boundaries. Email is useful. Chat is useful. Search is useful. Social media can be useful. But if every tool earns unlimited access to your attention, then your attention no longer belongs to your priorities. The first part of the book also introduces a moral dimension. Deep work is not only economically useful, it can make life feel more meaningful. That theme will become stronger later, but Newport plants it early. A life filled with shallow activity often feels scattered. A life with depth has weight. When you give sustained attention to something difficult and worthwhile, you are not merely producing output. You are becoming a different kind of person. This matters because many people secretly know that shallow busyness is not enough. They may have a good job, a reasonable salary, and a professional identity that looks respectable from the outside. But inside the day, they feel strangely thin. They answer, update, coordinate, skim, attend, and react, yet rarely touch the kind of effort that makes them proud. Deep work names that hunger. It says the problem may not be laziness. It may be that your environment is designed to keep you busy while preventing you from being fully present. That is a brutal bargain. You give your day to work, but the work never gets your full mind. Newport's opening argument is therefore both practical and personal. Practically, deep work helps you learn faster and produce better. Personally, deep work gives your attention a worthy object. It allows you to end the day with evidence that your mind was used, not merely rented out in tiny pieces to whoever shouted next. For a viewer, the first question is simple. Where in your week do you actually think? Not talk about thinking. Not prepare to think. Not open 12 tabs in the heroic belief that confusion plus Wi-Fi equals research. Where do you sit with one demanding problem long enough for your mind to move past the obvious answer? If the answer is nowhere, deep work is going to be uncomfortable. But it is the useful kind of uncomfortable. Newport is not scolding us for being human. Distraction is easy because it gives quick relief. Shallow work is easy because it provides instant evidence of activity. Deep work is harder because the reward arrives later. At first, it can even feel bad. The mind reaches for stimulation, like a bored toddler looking for a button to press. But that discomfort is the beginning of the skill. The ability to concentrate is not fixed. It can be trained, protected, and rebuilt. Newport's book is partly a defense of deep work and partly a manual for recovering it. In this first episode, the main idea is this. Deep work is not a productivity trick. It is the foundation for producing rare value in a distracted economy. If your work depends on learning, judgment, creativity, strategy, or craft, then your attention is not a side issue. It is the main instrument. This also changes how we should judge a normal workday. A day is not automatically successful because it was full. A full day can be full of crumbs. Newport wants us to ask a better question. Did the day contain any stretch of attention long enough to create something that was not already obvious? For example, imagine two workers. The first answers messages within minutes, attends every meeting, comments on every thread, and ends the day with a clean inbox. The second replies more slowly, attends fewer meetings, but spends 3 protected hours solving a technical problem, drafting a difficult memo, or learning a tool that will matter for the next year. In many workplaces, the first person looks more active, but over time, the second person may become far more valuable. That is the uncomfortable gap Newport is exposing. The visible worker is not always the valuable worker. The reachable worker is not always the effective worker. The loudest day is not always the most productive day. A shallow culture can train people to optimize for being seen rather than being useful. This does not mean you should become mysterious and impossible to contact. Deep work is not an excuse to act like a genius in a cave while everyone else handles reality. The point is balance and priority. Communication should support meaningful work, not replace it. Coordination should help value get created, not become the main product. The book also helps explain why deep work feels so hard at first. Most people are not merely choosing distraction. They have been conditioned by their tools and workplaces. If every day teaches the mind to expect novelty, speed, and interruption, then a quiet hour with one hard task can feel almost unnatural. The mind starts looking for exits. It wants a ping, a snack, a new tab, a reason to check whether the world has changed in the last 9 minutes. Newport would say this is precisely why depth matters. The discomfort is evidence that the skill has weakened, not evidence that the skill is impossible. You rebuild it by practicing the opposite pattern. One task, clear goal, no switching, real effort. There's also a strategic reason to care. Artificial intelligence, automation, and global competition keep raising the bar for ordinary knowledge work. If a task is easy to describe, easy to repeat, and easy to outsource, It is not a strong foundation for a career. The safer place is not frantic busyness. The safer place is the ability to learn hard things and produce judgment-rich work that cannot be copied cheaply. That does not mean everyone must become a coder, mathematician, researcher, or philosopher. Deep work applies to many fields. A teacher designing a better course is doing deep work. A founder thinking through product strategy is doing deep work. A writer building a chapter is doing deep work. A doctor studying a complex case, a lawyer preparing an argument, an analyst building an investment thesis, a designer solving a user problem, a student mastering a difficult subject, all of them depend on sustained attention. The common thread is cognitive strain in service of value. Deep work asks more from the mind than routine execution. That is why it is tiring, but it is also why it compounds. Every session does double duty. It moves the project forward and trains the mind to handle harder work next time. This is why Newport's opening is more than a complaint about distraction. It is a career strategy, a learning strategy, and a life strategy. If you can protect attention in a world that constantly sells it, you gain an advantage that is difficult to fake. The practical takeaway is to stop treating focus as something you will use after life calms down. Life rarely calms down by itself. Focus has to be given a place before the noise arrives. That might be a daily block, a weekly long session, or a rule that your most important work happens before communication tools open. The exact design can vary, but the priority cannot remain vague. Newport's opening also asks you to respect difficulty. If a task feels mentally hard, that does not automatically mean something is wrong. It may mean the task is finally asking enough of you to matter. Much of shallow work feels smooth because it avoids the edge of ability. Deep work feels rough because it lives near that edge. That roughness is not a bug. It is the point. And if modern work keeps stealing that instrument, politely, professionally, with notifications and calendar invites, then protecting it is not selfish. It is the job. Thank you for watching this first part. In the next episode, we will look at Newport's deeper warning, why deep work has become rare, why modern offices often worship shallow work, and why meaningful craft may be the best argument for taking focus seriously. Until then, notice where your best attention goes. If the answer is mostly to other people's emergencies, deep work has already begun tapping you on the shoulder.